Hello, everyone. Hi, I'm Cody Cisco. I'm the executive editor at Bookswell, which is producing the WeHo Read series presented by the City of West Hollywood. And we are so excited. Tonight is WeHo Read's Expansive, Vistas, and Hidden Corners. And we have two fabulous special guests, Lynell George and Marisela Norte. It's going to be a night of talking about creativity, photography, the city that we live in, the city that we see, the unseen city, and the city that's captured by our cameras. A couple notes before we get into it. The chat is disabled, so if you would like to ask a question, there is time at the end. Please use the Q&A function. And we are streaming on YouTube, so hello to those of you who are joining us via YouTube. Let me introduce our guests. Lynell George is an award-winning Los Angeles-based journalist, essayist, and author, a former staff writer for both Los Angeles Times and LA Weekly. Her work explores social issues and human behavior, as well as urban histories, visual art, music, and literature. She is the author of 3 books of nonfiction: No Crystal Stair, African Americans in the City of Angels; After Image, Los Angeles Outside the Frame; and her most recent, A Handful of Earth, A Handful of Sky, The World of Octavia E. Butler, which is amazing. And all of them are amazing, but I mean, especially, I'm a sci-fi fan, so. And that book was a 2021 Hugo Award finalist. Welcome, Lynell. And we're also joined by Marisela Norte, who is considered one of the most important voices to come out of East Los Angeles. Marisela Norte is the author of Peeping Tom Girl, the collection of poetry. Her work was featured in the MTA's Out Your Window project and named one of the best transit poems in the world by the Atlantic Monthly, to just name a few of her amazing credits. So here's how tonight's going to roll. We're going to hear a little bit of poetry, a little bit of nonfiction from first Marisela and then from Lynell. And then we're going to get into it. We've got a great set of discussions and photographic presentations for you, followed up at the end by some Q&A. Please stay till the end. We have a big announcement about our photography contest, which is kicking off tonight. So stay tuned. With that, I'm going to hand it over to Marisela.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for the invitation, Lynell. I can't see Lynell anymore. She disappeared.
I'll be back.
All right, there you are. Okay, thank you. Scare me. So I'm going to read something. It's probably one of the most recent pieces I've written. And I was invited to contribute. They're writing the big definitive book about MoCA. And I spent 14 years at MoCA in different positions there, starting off, reception, selling tickets, raising money, blah, blah, blah. So one of my favorite exhibitions they had there was called In Memory of My Feelings, and it was about Frank O'Hara, the poet. And what I didn't know about Frank O'Hara was that he used to work at the box office at MoMA. And in between selling tickets, he was writing poems. And so this piece is called In Memory of Frank O'Hara. Thinking outside the box office, we sang a chorus of ticket prices, freeway on-ramps, and restroom directions. After work, the Day for Night Cream Facial was there to revive you, like another screening of a favorite French movie. We of the box office like to believe it was all cinema, no matter what anyone said. Museums, bus stops, and train stations are all good collection centers for those who have gone astray. Here, I choose to go with your eyes, Frank, and take you with me to the bus stop of your choice, since neither one of us would be driving. We laughed at the circus peanut toenails winking at us from inside of white jeweled sandals in mid-November, counted Swedish tourists, men who carried their wives' handbags and still gave them money. We stood at bus stops long after the walls had been repainted and the names had all been changed. Together, we caught the last light of another disposable day in Los Angeles and passed our notebooks back and forth across a table at Clifton's. We waited in line for day-old loaves of rye bread at the old Grand Central Market when there used to be bread people could afford, after their once a month splurge of poet's cheese. Once a month, I treat myself to a Coke just to think about you, Frank. No one was looking at their phones then. But this wasn't the fair, long-haired Los Angeles that filled my teenage diaries. This was the city in the beginning of a love affair that felt more like a nervous breakdown, a happening before they went back to write about what's happening. Back then, no one had a phone to love, so remember, you did. One general, two seniors, no children. But the notebook scribble reads, two generals, now seniors, eat children. You sat next to me during the endless ticket transaction, whispering action. Sometimes like a silent movie, it rolled, sometimes not. I remember pulling Paul Mazursky out of the line at the box office and escorting him downstairs. The director turned to the unmarried woman and said, I'm here to see Frank. 2 beats. I'll tell him you're here. Thinking outside the box office, we sang a chorus of ticket prices, freeway on-ramps, and restroom directions, swimming upstream of consciousness. A small fox with a very long tail buys her student ticket with an expired ID. Weren't you Marisela Norte, she asks. I bury that question mark in a kitchen drawer along with AAA batteries from the 99. Blue envelopes from the fancy downtown florist that promised to revive wilting bouquets and stale prose. I crush the leaves from a tree I planted on Grand Avenue and pour them into a paper cup that has your name on it, Frank, to be read later aloud, imagining that they are a poem. So that was for Frank. And this book, which has been coming out since, when did COVID start? 2 years ago, 3 years ago? So I think it was delayed because of that, but the news on the street says that it's out this year. So I'm looking forward to that. I was really excited that they had invited me to contribute something.
That's great. Looking forward to it. And I love that line, another disposable day in Los Angeles.
Yeah, I think about it as my brother gave me some really good advice because I transfer at Vignes and Cesar Chavez. So what's across the street? Well, there's Aladdin bail bonds and there's the glass houses there, right? So there's people in need of a cigarette or in need of a lighter. So he said, when you go to the 99-cent store, buy a bunch of those lighters and nobody will bother you. And he's right. It has saved me so many times. Somebody just rolls up and says, hey, you got a light? It's like, here, man, take it. And then they're cool and they're not going to bother you and they will not let anybody else bother you. So that's my advice number one. That's it right there. So I liken the lighter just like LA, just like another day in LA. It goes by like this. So I think that's why I started taking so many pictures because it's going by so fast.
Right. Yeah. Thank you, Marisela. We'll get more into the journey toward photography a little bit later. Lynell.
Yes.
What you going to share with us?
I've been just thinking all day and letting the words sort of, but it's funny. We'll talk later about the Grand Central Market part because that pinged with me, and also you picked up, Cody, on a line too, this disposable LA. And years ago I wrote an essay where I talked about even as a young child, I realized like I needed to start paying attention to the city and what was here because it was going to go away. It always felt impermanent to me. And so part of this act of writing, even as a kid, which I was writing little stories, I was writing stories about like the LA that I did not see other places, not in movies, not on television, not in photographs. It was a city that I moved through, and the city that, my parents, like rolled through, on Sunday afternoons, like, let's take that long drive down Wilshire Boulevard and just see how the city changes. So that's sort of how my book After Image started too, is that I So I'm going to read I'm going to read from the introduction of that, because it explains a lot. Sometimes when I turn a corner here in Los Angeles, I'm haunted by a sensation. It's pure feeling, that jittery excitement that accompanies waiting for someone or something dear to arrive. It's pressing closer, the suggestion of it, but still too far off to see a sure shape or contours. And then maybe you blink or are in some other way distracted, and somehow when you refocus, it's passed by. That moment is receding, gone, impossible to recover. That's how I often feel about Los Angeles. There was something complex and beautifully imperfect that we were building in this wild mix of languages, cultures, and experimentation. We would try to build bridges across difference and distances of fear or hate. So many of us brought rituals and language and expectations from elsewhere. And in this new proximity, something new grew out of the soil for a while. For some time, I truly thought the Los Angeles that was on the way would be the best of all of what, even with the chaos and rough edges and failures of imagination, would be the best of all of that, even with the chaos and rough edges and failures of imagination. What were we building with our bare hands, broken and or improvised languages, and bad backs? What I'm left with now is an arrangement of streets that, if I squint, look familiar, but they are cul-de-sacs, a fading memory, a circle of what ifs. Too often I hear stories about people being nudged to the edges or pushed out of their hard-won homes. And more frequently than I like to acknowledge, I hear someone grousing about the quote unquote unfriendly new people, or lamenting the tossed out bits and pieces of a former life here, ghosts of rituals and memories that they step over as they go on with their day. Add to that list of laments too many discussions about exit strategies, quality of life issues, traffic, violence, expense, intolerance, and impatience sharpened to abrasiveness. And it's then I stop and ask, not them, but myself, not just when did I become the person marooned in punishing traffic at all hours, banging on the steering wheel, but when was the last time I wasn't? As deeply as I love and have come to understand my native city, its size and shape and equivocal nature, recently, as I move through it, I have become more and more perplexed. I seem to have lost Los Angeles, as if the city were a set of keys I somehow misplaced. I keep frantically retracing my steps, hoping to locate it. Something's lost and must be found. As a native Angelino, I've grown accustomed to the shape-shifting landscape. I have spent most of my life here thinking about sense of place, traveling across wide stretches of it, burrowing deep into it, attempting to write the mini cities Los Angeles has come to be on the page. Much of my writing has been an attempt to pull Los Angeles into focus for those on the outside, yes, but often really for myself. More quickly now, however, as the skies above me have become a busy lattice work of construction cranes and towering skeletons of drywall and steel, I find myself knocked off balance by the dramatic, sometimes wholesale upheavals. As I pass through what should be familiar thoroughfares, I see both hints of the past and previews of the future. The present has always been difficult to hold on to. We live with memory of memories. More than ever, I find myself stopping to consider what all that subtraction might ultimately amount to. When I say that I am from Los Angeles, what precisely does that mean? When change and recalibration of the present is a constant, a process that is a constant, a process, what does it mean when you live around or at the fringes of an image that is projected? What does it mean to understand yourself amid the clutter of outsiders' expectations of Los Angeles? In the last few years, I have been making a ritual out of recording that vanishing sense of place in essays and interviews and photographs. Something at the edges of my own consciousness told me I might need to. I started rising early Sundays when the city was emptied out or it was just blinking awake, so I could better see what was before me. Sitting in traffic on my way to work for 2 hours each way, only to do it again come morning, had blotted much of that out. What was the city on the ground, close up, that day-to-day city? I wanted to get back to it, reconnect maybe. I wasn't interested in what is beamed out as the stock imagery of Los Angeles, either a montage of upscale delights or blur of dysfunction, but the details, experiences, and people I've come to know and associate as home. I had come to a destination in my mind. I wanted to find and catalog what and who is still here, what image of the city away. What are you left with? What is the Los Angeles that lives inside of us? The one, the after image that lingers in the mind's eye.
The clutter of other people's expectations.
Oh yeah.
Oh, yeah.
You just want to like push them all away and be like, no, this is my experience, right?
Yes, and please listen to what my experience is. My experience counts, not what your ideas are.
Yeah.
We can have a conversation about it, but it's, yeah.
And to feel like you've lost the city like a set of keys. I love that because that feeling is like, I just misplaced it. It must be around here somewhere.
Yeah. And I think that feels that way. And I know Mari and I have talked a lot about this, about like how frustrating it is to really from week to week. It can be in a week. You drive by something that was there forever and it's gone. And then it's just gone, and sometimes it's a whole block of buildings, and it's beyond disconcerting. It really does make you feel as if not so much your story doesn't matter. I think even more, I think it makes me feel my story matters even more,
It's that sense of urgency that kicks in, I think, and it's true. It is weekly that it changes. I'm telling you, don't keep your eyes on what's happening in the Westlake district right now. There's so much construction going on, and it's a very dense couple of blocks where I like to go to my secret place. And excuse me, here's a little public service announcement. Please, no questions about what's your favorite place and what's your hidden gem. I'm not telling anybody. Okay? So
no, that's right.
That's it. So don't even save that question for someone else. Okay. But I went to Long Beach and I hadn't taken the blue line. I know it's called something else. I haven't taken the blue line to Long Beach in a long time. Well worth the trip. Coming back, right when it's kind of like on its last 4 stops, there's like a big empty space now. There were buildings there. I swear there were buildings there last time I went by there. But what they have are all these poles, and it's pole climbing training. It's like a pole climbing training center. I've never seen anything like that. Okay. I don't know how long it's going to stay there, but right across, there's this big, those ugly glass things that they keep building.
Yeah.
And right next to it, a little sweet little white house that I just wonder about if they own that piece of property, who knows, and how long is it going to be there?
Yeah.
No, I mean, COVID, we saw restaurants coming and going because of COVID. Right. Downtown was all boarded up. A lot of time I was still going to work, even though the museum was closed. I was on the bus when COVID was like at its highest, right? And somehow I managed, but I kept noticing like, oh, wow, that place didn't recover. Oh my God, that used to be the fish, gone, and you just, a lot of casualties.
Right.
But that's just downtown. That's just one little piece of downtown. We're talking about the rest of the city, you know?
Right. Right. No, and it's interesting, and I just to tie into what you were saying too is, with my Octavia Butler book, Octavia Butler was a bus writer, and was a bus writer in the way that Marisela is. And she talked to people, she interacted with the environment. She took copious notes about the bus. And because she said, when people talk about wanting to be a writer, well, you have riches everywhere. And if you are on a bus, you even have more, because you're eavesdropping, you're watching landscape change. And she just kept these notebooks, and this assumption that everybody drives in LA too. And and she was, and she talked about that too. She goes, I don't drive because I want to protect people from my driving skills or lack thereof. So I'm a proud bus rider, and riding the bus allows me to see the city change, but even more, this interaction between cultures and languages. And that's what we see in her books too. I mean, there's characters who speak other languages aside from English, because she was eavesdropping on it, and she was taking these classes, and she was interacting with people in that way. And I think that's really important about, for creativity. And, too, is that, our landscape is really rich, but it is sometimes tough to get into. If you just let the city happen to you, that's one LA. But if you go and engage with the city, it's a much more alive and beautiful and dynamic and complicated and ugly place. But LA requires that you walk in and participate,
You have to. That's the only way. I always say, turn the pavement up, how else are you going to know? I mean, again, and God bless Octavia for saying that.
Yes.
It's a public service that I don't drive, because I want to see, what's she carrying? Oh my God, where's she going? I remember that there's too many and it's rapid fire, and I don't want to be responsible for doing this.
That's right.
You don't need another driver out there. Trust me, you don't.
Right. No.
Yeah. And Parable of the Sower, when it came out, felt, prophetic. If you read it now, it feels like contemporary. It feels like this is the moment we're living in. This
is it. Yeah. No, I mean, she's just right on the nose. So much of it. Yeah. I during the first summer of the pandemic, I was reading Parable of the Talents, and it was a bit much, to be reading it when we were having that horrible heat wave, and the skies were pink and orange day after day. And, you're hearing the radio reports about, the water shortage, and, it's just drought, I'm sorry. And the water shortage, of course, but she nailed it. And it was just her paying attention to what if this, continues.
And here we are.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we'll see in a moment some, additional photographs that both of you have generously shared with us in order to see a little bit of the city through your eyes. But before we get there, I do want to thank our sponsors, the UCLA Extension Creative Writing Program, where many, LA and West Hollywood and elsewhere writers have gone through, has made a generous contribution. Poets and Writers as well is supporting the writers in this series financially. And we've got some great media partners with Book Soup, that classic institution on Sunset. Lynell and I were talking about the Sunset Strip the other day. As well as the Los Angeles Review of Books and bookshop.org. So I've put some links in the chat where you can find a few books, but you can also go to BookSoup and browse and support the series that way. I would like now to introduce Mike Che, the Arts Division Coordinator from the City of West Hollywood, to share a little bit more about the WeHo Reads series. And I think he's here now. Yes.
Hi there. Thank you, Cody. And thank you very much to our readers, Lynell and Marisela. We are so pleased that you are here presenting this wonderful program and sharing your words and soon images. As Cody mentioned, I am Mike Che. I work for the City of West Hollywood in our Arts Division. We're very proud to present this program with Bookswell. And of course, we cannot make that happen without the continued support of our art-loving City Council and Arts Commissioners. So we extend thanks to them for continuing to fund the WeHo Reads literary program. And also we do want to honor that we are coming to you from the unceded, seized territories of the Gabrielino, Tongva, Kizh, and Chumash peoples. So we acknowledge that these lands are belonged to them. And this land acknowledgement is just one step in beginning to unravel all of the continued oppression that has built up over the years. We do have some other events that are coming up. I think Cody's going to share about them in a little bit, but I will share very quickly. WeHo Reads is our literary series. We've been presenting it for several years now. We do have 2 more events for 2022. We're very excited about October 5th. It's an event that is curated by our poet laureate, Brian Sonia Wallace, and it is, he received a fellowship from the Academy of American Poets, $50,000 to do a community project. So he's bringing together 6 of his other fellows from across the country who are going to talk about what they did with that money and what sort of community projects they brought forth. And then we've got the closing event, which I'm sure Cody will share, but it's going to be a wonderful closer to our series. Thank you very much for joining us, and please enjoy the rest of the event.
Great, thank you, Mike. Yes, we'll share more information about upcoming events soon. And now we are going to dig into the imagery of the city. Marisela, I'm going to pull up the photographs that you shared with us, and in just a moment. Here we go. Okay, can everyone see that? Let's see. Nope. There we go.
Mm-hmm.
Looks good.
Here it is.
Let me know when.
Yeah.
Let me know when you want me to move forward.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. Did you want me to say anything about these, or just let them go, or?
Yeah. I think if you have anything you want to point out.
Yeah. Well, again, I'm very grateful that I work with young people that got me on the Instagram, and they said, you take a lot of pictures, Marisela, maybe you want to put them on Instagram. So I was like, okay. So my tagline is usually "Through a Glass Darkly," which of course is a movie title, but it's my everyday life, is looking at everything through a bus window. This is a house that's kind of at the beginning of my ride it's an hour and a half to work each way. And this is one of the first kind of places I tend to always turn to my right to see what I see. So I'm looking at a house inside of a house and framed by another house. I think that's what I was looking at.
Mm-hmm.
The dollhouse is gone. I was telling Cody, I think that last time I looked, there was a sofa there, but I didn't want to take a picture of it. But I just got, I just love light is one thing. Lynell and I are always kind of talking about light. And when you get to see it, when you're lucky enough to, at that right moment, and everything's either orange or it's pink, it's lovely. And this is kind of the beginning of the day, which I like to be a little hopeful as I start off. Yeah. You can go on to the next one if you want. Again, a disappearing, I call it, this is hashtag disappearing act. I'm a huge fan of hand-painted signage. And so Moni's Party World, it says, recuerdos para toda ocasión, means like, you know, gifts and memories for every occasion. But somehow, I don't know if somebody was trying to steal that. It was not me. I would have coughed up and said, it was me trying to pull it off. Like, it's kind of loose, let's take it. But these are the things, this is Brooklyn Avenue. I still call it Brooklyn Avenue, all respect to Cesar Chavez, but to me, it's Brooklyn Avenue. And this particular street is going through major changes right now. So I'm trying to get in there and photograph as much of this as I can. And the colors are just amazing.
Yeah.
So this is coming home, and if I'm on the 720 and it's that long hideous accordion bus, but it's got those nice 4 seats that are right in front of the doors when they open. To me, it's like the curtain rises. This is the beginning of the movie. And sometimes it's just one shot, you know, and this is at the corner of Alvarado and Wilshire, and that corner is hopping any time of day. There's something happening. And this was just somebody that was about to get on. A woman in the back with a mask, a man getting on without a mask. Yeah. Again, it was one shot, and it's just, do I take a picture? Do I not? Yes, I do. And I'll live with myself later. But yeah, that's what that is. This was early COVID. I remember because this is Whittier Boulevard and Atlantic. And I was going to the cemetery. And I just noticed the little girl, you know, kind of saw a little boy, and maybe they were going to talk or say something to each other, but still very cautious, kind of hiding behind her mom. And I like the way the mom is like, probably is holding her hand, but still has her arm on her, like kind of they just looked scared to me. They looked as scared as all of us were feeling at that time. Like I said, I was still going into work when COVID was on the rise. And, you know, to see babies with masks, it was a lot. It was a lot to take in, you know. But yeah, you spend a lot of time waiting. So I take a lot of pictures when I'm waiting. Yeah. Okay, hashtag no eyes, hashtag through a glass darkly, hashtag brown, hashtag I see you. Young man going to work. This particular bus stop, I see most of the wait staff that's on its way to Beverly. They're either on their way to Beverly Hills or Santa Monica. A young brown man standing, holding a white shirt, which means when he gets to the restaurant, he's gonna change it. I've worked in restaurants for years, so I know carrying a white shirt, I've carried the white shirt. I know what that means. This was just a young man, just happened to be walking by. The sign, who knows where it was pulled off. It looks like the one that's on the freeway over, you know, the bridge, right? What do you call that? Overhead thing? Overpass. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yes. But somehow it landed on Wilshire Boulevard on the Miracle Mile. There it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
Again, this was in South Central. A dear friend of ours passed away, and we went to her service that was in South Central. That's very Mexicano right now. And this, again, these paintings, somebody sat there and did a sketch and went to El Chaparron and said, hey, I want to paint this on your wall. You know, is that cool? And he's like, okay, go for it, do it. So I'm looking at that for that reason. I'm looking at EBT. I'm looking at you make copies if you need to make copias of your important documents that you're going to be sending off. I think there's even a a Western Union attached to that. There might even be a Wi-Fi, free Wi-Fi, who knows what, but there's so much going on here. And like I said, I'm a huge fan of who does lettering like that anymore. You know, I should bite my tongue. I'm sure there's going to be a craft something opening soon with this kind of lettering person. Anyway, that's what that is. And anything in Spanish I see and I cheer and I love it.
Yeah.
That's waiting. That's in the parking lot of Aladdin Bail Bonds. And Aladdin, if you get off at Aladdin Bail Bonds, you either have to go see somebody in jail, go get a bond, or go across the street to Union Station and catch the train. So there's like a bus there. Like, I don't know where they're going. I think, Lynell, years ago when you and I first started chatting, I sent you a picture of, it was a bus company saying, you know, we'll take you to Tehachapi if you have a loved one that's locked up. We'll take you there. You remember that?
I do remember.
Yeah, they were like when they pick up seniors at Denny's and they take them to the casinos. This was picking up people and taking them to like the jail tour, like going up, going up north. So this was just somebody waiting, you know. We're all waiting for something, I think. And again, there's like, do I take a picture of this? But I'm looking at the colors. I'm looking at the shapes. It looks like a piece of sculpture to me. Yeah, that's, parking lot of Aladdin Bail Bonds. Okay, this is another reason why I curse the MTA, because they do these insane, like movie posters, or they cover the bus, they shrink wrap it in something where you can't look out the window. So you kind of have this honeycomb effect, but it doesn't stop me. Again, that's one of my favorite corners on Alvarado and Wilshire. You know, hey, I forgot to buy shampoo. I know I can get it there. I don't have coffee. I think I can get it there. I need a new identity. I can probably get that there too. I don't, but I mean, it's like your one stop, whatever you need. Right. And I have found some real treasures. My guy that used to sell movies, I mean, I never expected to find a copy of Ozu's Tokyo Story on a blanket next to like Death Wish 3 and some other movies. There it was. I don't know how it got there. There's a story attached to that. I said, how much is this? He goes, $1. I'm like, okay, I'll take it, right? So this is that corner. And sometimes the city makes itself kind of hard to look at. Well, this is one of those times, but still, I think you can see her. I can see her.
Yeah. Yeah.
Central Library. I sometimes catch the bus on 5th and Grand. I have not been back to the library for my own reasons. I don't plan to go back to that library anytime soon. There's been a lot of movie shoots on Grand Avenue, which movie shoots means your bus is going to be delayed an extra half hour. You might get on some wild detour, but you know what? Bring it on. I always give myself an extra half hour to leave, because you don't know what's going to happen. You don't know if someone's going to just have, this is it. They're going to lose it on your bus on that particular morning. So you always have to give yourself a window. This kind of, he blended right in with the shadows in that tree. And again, you ask yourself, do I take a picture or don't I? And I think right now I'm just saying yes. I'm just taking pictures. That's the late shift. She won. In my eyes, she won the contest. And those were the flowers they gave her. And that was one of the judges in the back. I mean, it's just like Pershing Square is probably not the best place to be standing at around 9:30-ish, but it's like there's two downtowns. There's I'm on a scooter and yeehaw, and they're running up and down. They're on scooters. They have no idea what's happening. And there's people that live in Pershing Square and hang out in Pershing Square for different reasons. And there's people coming home from work.
Mhm.
I just happened to be the person coming home from work that day. So all this other madness is going on, but she just looked so wonderful holding those well-deserved flowers.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that was, yeah, that's
Right.
all of them. Yeah, thank you. I
Mhm.
feel like I've traveled.
Mhm.
Lynell, I'm gonna press play on
Okay.
your photos. Right. So share and then start at the beginning and then go.
Okay.
This is automated.
Yes, and I don't have necessarily stories to go with each image, but because I'm generally taking photos in a lot of the same ways that Mari is whatever catches my eye as I'm moving through and things that are changing. And when I was going through this set of photos and preparing them, I was realizing how many of these things, small and large, are gone, but they're just moments of trying to just hold on to moments. This is out here in Pasadena, and a crystal clear day.
Hmm.
Union Station,
That light.
that
Yeah.
light, and under the bridge here. And the light. Arts District, which is now so different. You know, I kind of
Mhm.
like that open-endedness. And one of the essays in the book, chapters in the book, is about these artists who are trying to not get evicted, and many of them did. The old Bob Baker Theater. This is right below Chinatown Station in the Metro. And that building, I think, has changed. And that's Chinatown. That's still there, but it's changing around it. One of my favorite places to walk after work sometimes when I was at the Times. That and there are those ever-present cranes. This is above Olvera Street. This was probably fifth, and I can't remember, but yeah, their commentary. I love these little turquoise bungalows, that you see around. I was doing a series of those around the city. This is Watts. This is a doll head garden. It's very extensive. It's beautiful. It's a market, printer market. I love the paintings. This is Mariachi Plaza in the afternoon. Again, people talking back on the walls at Spoil Heights. Rosemead, that place doesn't exist anymore. It's now a Vietnamese place. Fire Skies. And can we pause on this, Cody?
Yeah, let me see how I can do that. Can you still see it?
Yeah.
Okay.
So when we were talking about Grand Central Market, that's a place that, I've gone to since I was a kid. And over the years, it was a meeting place for us. And when I first started working at the newspaper, it was a place where, we reporters could get a cheap lunch and do our groceries and take home, and these signs, which you can see, are just cut out from boxes and hand done. You don't see that anymore. And, this is what I mean about just thinking to pause and photograph and keep that this way, because, I can use words for things and can describe them, but, and the things that I miss in photographs, sometimes I think there's a reason why I wasn't supposed to make that photograph. I'm supposed to do something else with it. It needs to sit in my head and become writing. But sometimes images like this, I'm so glad I probably irritated somebody by saying, wait, I need to go back and take a photo of this. But I have a series of them, so I'm glad I have them. Anyway, I did want to stop on that. that memory.
I miss seeing that. I really do. I miss seeing that.
Yeah. I think there's another one of these coming up.
Okay. Griffith Park,
Hmm.
which is getting spruced up too. This is one of my favorite things. It's like, is that commentary on development or non-development? Again, you know, these were just starting to sprout up around the freeway, South LA. Also South LA, a church. This is underneath the 4th Street Bridge, and I just love remnants. I just love remnants. I just love them. Working LA. And I just love this sort of detail. You'll know where that is, where we're going. This is May Day. Boyle Heights. Downtown, Town Street. This was Central Avenue, I believe. I think this was closer to me. I'm trying to remember now. Oh, I love ghost signs and all the stories. Private baths, nice place. No dumping. It's a neighborhood watch. Very serious sign.
Wow.
And this.
That's epic.
That's epic.
Yeah.
Mariachi Plaza, the hotel. The bridges. Also, our district, I think this might still be there. I have to go back down there. I think this is Dockweiler. That's shot from the Arts District looking towards City Hall. It's Midtown. More of my hand painted beauties.
I love those colors.
Venice.
Wow.
Arts District. Colors, colors, colors. And you know where that is, Mari.
Oh, yeah.
I love this. I love signs and conversation. Winning, losing. That's the last one, I think. Is that the second one, Cody?
I think
Yeah.
so.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, more. Okay.
Yeah, that was
Okay.
the.
Okay. Thank you.
Mhm.
Yeah. So there they are. And
so we'll have time for Q&A. If anyone has a question, pop it in the Q&A. I'll keep an eye on that. But I want to start maybe by asking you about when you decide to, I guess in the olden days, it would be click the shutter or, tap on your phone or whatever you're using. Like, what makes something a moment that you want to capture?
for either of us or just?
Yeah.
I mean, for me, it's a lot of things. It's like you said, those colors, right? It's the colors, it's the light, it's what's happening in the photo. If it's people that are getting on the bus, I'm mindful to cut faces off sometimes. It's crazy grandma Korean fashion that's where plaid, flowered leopard, everything comes colliding and it works. And it's so gorgeous. I mean, it's all those things.
Yeah. Yeah. I it's funny. It is hard for me to, I mean, it's something that I feel in my gut almost too, where it's like, I may be late for something, but I have to stop and go back, and it's something that's I have to look back at, like, did I really see that? And what does that mean? And what's the story? Like, there's this photo I saw of this woman walking down Lake Avenue here in Pasadena with a full wedding gown on. But clearly unhoused because pushing a cart and with all, her belongings in it. And I just wanted to know more about this story, and I wanted to make sure I was seeing what I was seeing and what it meant. So there are things like that, and it's not even just, it's not the reporter alarm or, pull. It's even more than that. It really, I think it is a lot about, like, it's that, well, who is this person and how did this happen? And look at this pristine looking dress. So the dress must have been found. So I start, putting together all of this backstory about what it is. And it's a moment, because sometimes I can go around and it's gone too.
Yes.
So there's that happens as well.
It's true.
Marisela, do you feel it in your gut too? Or is it, what?
Many times, and again, that's another reason I give myself extra time, is because I'm just going to jump off here. I got to go see what this is, right?
Yeah.
So, because you're right, Lynell, you go back and it's like when you remember we were trading photos a couple of years ago, and it was just like the pair of pants, but no body. But
Right.
The pants were like, it's almost like they caught him, they zapped him, and he was in mid-run.
Right.
Or, what is that story? Yeah. What happened?
Pants, shoes. Yeah.
Or just one shoe, I was telling Cody about the shoes of West Hollywood, where it's just one shoe. It's like after a Friday night, there's like one shoe on the street.
Right.
What happened? Is it my business? Shoe? I'm making it my business, right?
Right.
Yeah. It is a gut feeling, though. It is. And you just have to, I just try to be respectful with the photos I take. And
yes,
I did take a picture of it. I asked her, I said, Senora, I need to take your photo. She was all dolled up for this 16th of September. This lady had red, white, green jewelry, the bow in her hair. I said, Senora, you're fabulous. And she was just like, oh, no, no one told you that today. Like, if anything, I was able to have an exchange in Spanish, which is what I miss more than anything, because COVID has made people on the bus very reluctant to start up conversations like we used to, before you could sit, and before you know it, I'm at Vermont already. Cool, almost there. But now everyone is masked and everybody's kind of looking at el TikTok, estoy viendo el TikTok, they're watching. I'm as bad as that. I can't sleep at night. I'm watching cat things, cat pranks or whatever. I don't know. But people are they're looking down.
Yeah.
They're not really looking up. Beginning of COVID, you had a mask on and your eyes said, please don't sit next to me. Go sit over there. But no one said anything. So I have my conversations at the bus stop mostly now, not so much in transit. What type of cameras do you use? My phone. I don't have a fancy camera. I'm sorry. I wish I did. What do you shoot with, Lynell?
I usually have my phone with me. That's how it all started. I hadn't used my camera in years, and I had taken photography classes when I was in school, and but I had stopped, communicating that way. And but once I started going out on weekends, and the camera also, the phone actually, the best part about it is that so many people have one, so it isn't as, people don't feel like, oh my God, you're pulling out this foreign thing and what are you doing?
Right.
So I do have a small Canon, which is wonderful. It's a GX, I can't see, GSX. I've had two Power Shots, a G11 and they're great. They fit. I can put them in my pocket, and so I have like better quality images. And I finally did go and buy a DSLR, but that changes the interaction. If so I'll pull out the DSLR if I'm doing an assignment, and I need to have a bigger photo file. But the phone is like having a notebook. It's like, Octavia and her, her taking her notes. The phone is a way for me to kind of remember, oh yeah, I want to go back and think about that, or flush that out, or go check on it in a month or so. So yeah,
see if it's still there. Yeah.
Yeah.
Marcel, you mentioned when we were talking before the event about how, in a way, you're taking the photos as a way of communicating and almost like poetry. I was wondering if you want to talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, I think in many ways, I'm trying to remember when was the last, I kind of pulled myself out of the poetry circle, the poetry game, just because I didn't think I had anything that interesting to say. And I thought, why go out there and read the same pieces again and again when I don't even recognize that woman's voice anymore? Who was she? And so hearing that young woman ask me, weren't you Marisela Norte? And I had to stop and think, yeah, I guess I was at that time. So it was kind of just, pull myself out for a while. Lynell and I, thanks to Louise Steinman, were able to work on a collaboration because she said, what are you guys cooking up? And we said, what do you mean? Well, you're doing these photographs, and I think you guys are having a conversation about LA. We are? And it kind of started like that.
Yeah.
So I wrote about Lynell's photographs, and turned them into prose, right? What was he called? Oh, you're asking me about the photos. Many, many times I feel that the photograph kind of speaks for itself. # I'm sending you this poem because I'm struck by something that it would be, I would be doing it a disservice by trying to put it into words when just look, it's like the signage, like look up, you're missing everything. You're looking at buildings. Yeah, they're beautiful, but what's happening up there, right? People live up there. When you're coming down Chavez and you're right entering Chinatown, and it's right where Olvera Street kind of ends. And if you look to your right, there's a clothesline there. The people live there. It's an apartment. It's not just restaurants and souvenir shops. It's like people live there, right? So I think for now, I'm choosing to let the photographs kind of speak for me in that sense, instead of trying to say, like I said, you don't really set out and say, I'm going to write a poem today and it will be about blah, blah, blah. It just doesn't happen that way. For some, it may work that way. It doesn't work like that for me. It's, is it getting dark in here? Do I need to put another light on? I feel like I'm getting
the light
lost
may be
here.
changing. Yeah.
Yeah, a little bit. So yeah, I think I'm turning to the camera more and more, but I've always taken pictures, so this is nothing new. And somebody said, "Oh, are you doing that now?" Well, what can I? Is that okay? Like, can I do both? Like, oh no, you need to just do this.
Right.
So yeah, I enjoy it. I enjoy it. I'm doing it for myself. I'm doing it I have no heirs. I'm just doing it because it's something I feel I have to do. I'll remember LA in my own way.
Right.
Yeah, we had a few questions come through about specific places. And so this, I think, might be a little bit fun. One of them is about whether you have any memories, thoughts, or feelings about West Hollywood, its past, its present, and its future.
I definitely do.
I have a lot of thoughts, but I'll keep those to myself.
I mean, yes, I definitely do. We were talking before, and one of the big proving ground moments for me, like the thing that I had to do, I didn't get a car until very, very late. And, I was taking a bus and riding around with friends. But one of the things I really wanted to make happen was get up the hill on La Cienega to get to Sunset Boulevard, to make the left turn so I could go to Tower Records and then cross the street to Book Soup. Because that to me was, those two places had so much to do with, you know, educating myself and forming, because it's back when you could get really inexpensive records, and the booksellers and the record store clerks would talk to me about music and books, and I wanted to get there, and you know, I'd go there with my, you know, my mother really loved taking us up there, but I wanted to be able to do that, you know, and on my own, and get there. It was a real like rite of passage, you know, but I had to, and I knew there were ways to go around and avoid that hill, but I was like, I need to get up that hill. So, and then of course, it's the beautiful reward of going down the hill, you know, going back, is that beautiful view you have of, at night or sunset, of LA and West Hollywood. It was funny. I also was thinking, I was just reading that wonderful biography of Eve Babbitt's, called Eve's Hollywood. And there's this great section about Ports Marisela. And it's just so well done. And so Santa Monica Boulevard comes alive, you know, and all these people who came from all these different walks of life, and would sit and tell stories. And it was so, I'd forgotten how much, you know, even though I didn't go there that often, it was when I was still working at the LA Weekly, we would sometimes go up there. But again, those sorts of watering holes that were, that where you just talk about bridges again, walking, you know, we crossed all these bridges to be in this place and be together, and it didn't matter. And it was the stories you could hear there. So yeah, those are some like really rich early memories of West Hollywood for me.
The first thing I thought of when you said any memories of West Hollywood, I wanted to say, you know, I miss West Hollywood when it was gay, you know, when it was like, that was where you went if you wanted to go dance, or you wanted to go, you know, listen to music or whatever. It's changed so much. I have a dear friend that still lives there. It's just not the same, you know. Definitely poured Santa Monica Boulevard, the Troubadour, staring at the windows at Fred Slatton, looking at those platform shoes, you know, going around and around with rhinestone, the platform, and then you said Sunset Boulevard, because I'm a maniac and I wake up at 4 a.m. I'm watching Barnaby Jones. And why am I watching it? Because it's shot in LA. It's shot in 70s LA. And so he's sitting there having an espresso, and what's across the street? Oh, it's the parking lot. It's Tower Records. So there I am. What was the place where he was sitting? Type it on Facebook. And if you remember, Abby Phillips rings in. Cafe Kafka. Oh my God, those two words. All of a sudden that just, Cafe Figaro. I know you and I were there at the same time, but didn't know each other.
We had to be, and because I did go to Figaro a lot.
Those were like, they were clubhouses in a way, like Gorky's was the downtown clubhouse. I think Cafe Fig, you know, you go see like a double feature at the New Beverly or at the New Art, and then go back and sit for hours. They wouldn't kick you out. No, you could just hang. It was different.
And I remember those menus. Now that you're talking, they were paper, and they were like the newspaper.
Yep.
Yeah.
There may be one in my mother's garage. Who knows? I have a feeling there might be one there. Yes, I know.
We have a question come through. How do you feel about the new 6th Street Bridge? And, you know, that might be the bridge overall, but also as something you might capture in a photo.
I'm going to move my light because I feel like I'm in the dark.
Well,
good dodge.
It's funny, the day that the first day I rode across the bridge, I actually ended up seeing Marisela after I had taken my first, and I got up really early in the morning. So it was the weekend after the first weekend, and I got there and it must have been 6 something in the morning, and the sun was coming up. So I did take some, and I was under the bridge, and there was already families out there from Boyle Heights, and they were out there, and there were some young kids with their cars and their cameras, and it was like people were having coffee and rolls and talking. And as the sun started to come up, then there were more people, and I went up on the top of the bridge. And I haven't been back since, and I've been following all of the coverage about it. But what it said to me, and I am going to probably write about this because it was so striking, was that people here want a place to meet up, have events, do things, and I think the way the city, with the way we've been like battling with gentrification, and this is for this, and this must be used this way. I think in those first few weeks with the bridge, it was like arm wrestling. No, this is our bridge, this is, and so it's going to be interesting to see how it's used, but to see all the different ages. I mean, that was the other thing. At that early in the morning, out there, on their bikes, having coffee, walking across the arches, racing their cars, taking videos, posing, for photos. And then of course, later we saw the haircuts, in the middle of the bridge and all the stunts. But it says something to me. There was something very vivid about it that reminded me of what it was like here in the 70s and in the 80s, where, it was just sort of like, you didn't know what you're going to walk into. And, the speed is scary, and I'm that worries me. But the other part of it, of activating a space, was interesting. So I think it's a story that is, one of my friends who's an editor now, he said, I think they should turn it into a park. I think they should make it like, like we have other bridges you can use with your cars. Maybe the people have spoken. It should be this instead of that. So I'm definitely going to write about that, so that's a perfect example of going to take a photograph and going to witness something and then thinking, oh no, there's a story in this too. So,
right. I mean, I remember that morning, and I went over it with my dear friend Sandra. We were on our way to see a revival of a play that we wrote about 20, 30 years ago called Black Butterfly, performing in East LA. And she picked me up at work, and she says, you want to go over the bridge? I'm like, yes, I haven't done it yet. It just felt like I was so excited. And I thought, oh my God, this is what driving feels like. Just us going over it.
Yeah.
And again, seeing everybody come together over something that didn't involve sports.
Yes.
It wasn't the Dodgers. It wasn't the Lakers.
Yes.
It's the city. You know what I mean? And that's where it struck me.
Yeah.
This is not sports related. It's not like, nonsense, and nothing got burned down, and everybody was chill. Watch your speed, kids. Come on now. Watch your speed. But all ages, everyone. And that to me is really important, as I now embracing my senior status. It has to be intergenerational. Come on, it has to be.
Yes.
So that was exciting. Yeah. So I'm like, yes, thumbs up, Bridge.
Yeah.
Nice. Maybe shifting a little bit, I wanted to ask about the relationship between your photography and your writing, and whether they feed one another, or I know we've touched on it a little bit, but one thing we chatted about before was almost about the role of journaling versus writing for publication. And like, when do you know if something is for an audience versus something for yourself?
That's really interesting. I was just telling someone the other day, who was really struggling with writer's block, that I said, and who publishes, having trouble journaling, having problems with the trying to come up with ideas, for publication, kind of burnt out.
Mhm.
And I said, there's I think there is this middle place, and which is, if you can pretend that you're writing for a public, but it doesn't have to be seen. You can pretend, because I think the journaling was too hard for her because she was resisting going places in the writing. And there was something about like having this sort of middle spot, this sort of in between space where she thought, well, maybe what I can do is set up a blog, and the blog is private. And then we started talking about, like, I said, yes. And then you could, maybe there's a photograph and maybe you want to write from that, but that became this way of, thinking about, there are these in between places, where you don't want to just, you're not really writing to like pour your heart onto the page. And you're not really ready to do something formal, but there's an idea. And I think if you can sort of trick your mind into writing, and there's something about, for me, with these photographs of, like, I wasn't right when I first started doing this in earnest. I really was doing it because I had a 2-hour drive one way to work and back home. And I really thought I didn't like the city anymore. And I didn't have brain space to write. I was exhausted because I was teaching, and I had my students' work in my head because I was helping them solve problems. And that was fine because that's what I'm supposed to do, so there wasn't any resentment, but I realized that I just didn't have the space to feel creative. So those photographs started to take the place of writing for a while when I couldn't. It was a creative outlet. It was like a little bit of a story. And then, and as Marisela said, oh, there's Instagram, or back then there was Tumblr, in these places you could, and I actually created this community. Like, I think it was Tumblr, and some of them moved to Instagram, but it was a bunch of people like me, who were like working people who had other careers, chefs and mechanic, and I'm trying to remember it's really interesting group of people. They were all doing sort of the same thing. It was sort of their public journal. And so it was very inspiring, In fact, one of them may be on tonight because we've all started following one another into like these other realms now.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, it's fantastic.
I tell you, when Lynell George posts 1,000 words of summer, if that isn't a nudge, I don't know what is, as far as writing goes. And so you start, and of course the first 10 pages are like, oh God, I hope I'm going to burn these. Find these and puts my name to them. And then you kind of leave it alone, and then you come back, you go, there's something there. There's just one little set of, it's an idea, something. So what I do, because I write longhand, I don't have a computer. And what I do is I write longhand, and then I transcribe it at work. I print it out, and then I edit it on the way home. If I'm still salvaging that idea, then I know that there's something there. I'm afraid of the word journaling because that reminds me of self-care, and that I just get really anxious about, that part of it.
Yeah.
And everyone is living their best life, I think, and I feel bad that I'm not participating in my best life right now, but it's fine. It's fine. I'm just not gonna force it. That's the other thing. I know when I'm writing something, and I said, you're not writing this for you, you're writing this for somebody else. And it's like, nope, no good. Bye, put it away.
Right.
But like I said, if you go back and there's still, that little cloud is still hanging on, then I know it's worth saving, and maybe not pursuing right now, but going back to later, which of course I never throw anything away. So. Right.
And those little bits and pieces, they add up, too. That's the thing, and I do think of it as collage. And you know, some of these photos, just even tonight, looking at these photos that I took years ago now, and it made me just start thinking about like the next piece I'm probably going to write is not so much going back and seeing what's still there, but really thinking about, you were already worried about what Los Angeles was going to be. What is it going to be now? You know, and what is it? And what story do you want to tell now? And now I have these notes, you know, about when I was already grabbing onto it. You know, what is it going to feel like? Where do I start? And that's the thing. It's almost like I feel like, as you were saying, Marisela, like this, if an idea is hanging with you, you know, long enough, you know, okay, this is what I'm gonna start, you know, cooking on. So
I don't know if you have felt this, or I mean, we've probably talked about this, Lynell, but you know, with COVID happening and the lockdown and everybody kind of staying in, and you know, I don't want to go out there. If I have to run to Ralph's to get a tomato, I'll run and I'll run back home because I don't want to hang out. I don't want to linger. Sorry, I'm not ready yet. Then I see, again, we're seeing things changing. And I'm thinking, I've kind of isolated myself, not just with COVID, but just on purpose. Am I still going to be able to move around in this new, in this new LA? Am I going to want to, you know, what's going to be my role there as an elder? But do you know what I mean? Is there, do I make a space there for myself? We were talking about, I was talking to a friend of in my age group, and we were talking about invisibility, and she was saying, oh no, not me, I'm not invisible, no. And I thought, wow, I don't feel like that. I feel like I'm glad I am, because I can kind of, I have my phone, click, you know, nobody's paying attention to me. Nobody, believe me, they're not. Everyone's focused on doing this, taking a picture, or
that's
here's
true.
Here's my breakfast, lunch, and dinner, appetizer, cocktail, Starbucks. I saw it last week. It was lovely last week. I'm sure it's going to be lovely next week. I really don't, I'm not interested. But what I'm saying is that nobody's paying attention to me in a good way. I just want to run with that, you know?
It's interesting how, you know, like maybe there's this, I don't know if it's generational, but what we see so often online is people putting themselves in the story. It's turning the camera around and making sure that if it's that scene outside, I'm there too. And it's almost like a compulsion. Sometimes it seems like that maybe, you know, people feel they're written out or not paid attention to or ignored or erased. And so it's this like other thing where they're in every photo, they're in every frame. But you know, one thing that strikes me about both the sets of photos that you shared was it was about the world. It was about your eye, what you see, what you want to communicate.
It's a lot more interesting when you turn it around, I think. You know, I mean, Lynell, we could probably count the number of pictures of you and I together as like 3 or maybe 4. Because whenever we hang out or meet, or there's no one ever says, okay, let's do this now. Look at us. Look at us. We're eating together.
We're eating
together. Melissa Jones wants to send me a message. It says, oh, that's on Instagram. Never mind.
So, well, you know, to pick up on something you just said, Mari, and it's true. And Cody, it's like one of the things I thought about, you know, and I think it's an after image. I can't remember because I have like pandemic brain. But this idea of like, what do we leave in terms of, like, I think about like the family photographs I have inherited of the Los Angeles that my family landed in and the communities that they lived in. So the details of those photographs are things like, this is the house, this is the garden, this is the car in the driveway, this is the spread on the table that people are going to eat, then the people that come in, they're sitting in the chair. So you really see out the garden, like all of this. But I'm thinking, who inherits the pictures of now, these selfies, like there's not any sort of like, I mean, sometimes there is. I'm not gonna, but this idea of like, what's the establishing shot? Where is the context? What, because that's what, as someone who is a storyteller, someone who does research, I want to know, I want to feel it. I want to see more than your new sunglasses, and I mean, and that's great to have those because that's interesting too, but if all of your photos are that, then not. So I just encourage people to remember you're telling a story about what's around you and the textures and the how it feels. Like use your senses, and even as writers, like think about that as you move through the world. Like Mari, you said something in the very beginning when we were looking at the photo of the woman sitting in front of the bail bondsman's place. Mm-hmm. You talked about, you looked at the colors and the shapes, and there's this great quote, and I'll have to find it, and but from this novel I read, and it's called the Italian Teacher, and he's explaining to he's the artist, the main character's father is an artist, and he's explaining, when you're thinking about telling a story, you're painting, and that's telling a story. Think about shapes. Think about all the things you're seeing, and that's what, I think about both in my writing and both in the photographs as well.
Yes. You talk about old family photos, again, going through boxes, COVID time, going through boxes and boxes. And I don't know if your family did this, but, you take a photo, everyone stand by the hi-fi, stand by the Magnavox.
Oh, yeah.
That was like, it was almost like a car in the living room. The thing was like so long, right?
Yeah.
But they were so proud. My parents were so proud when they bought that. I remember, and they gave us 3 free albums that we played over and over and over and over again. But that was the centerpiece, like that piece of furniture, with the grapes on top, the glass grapes. We were like sitting there.
Oh, yes. Yes.
And everybody has that in their family. And I mean, but there's always that story attached to it, right? Which you talked about earlier too, about the Los Angeles that our families kind of met, by first generation, me being first generation. And when my father gave up his, projectionist job in Mexico, where he was born, to come to LA, did he come to LA thinking Hollywood? Was that on his mind? I don't know. Or did he just come here thinking, I'll stay for a year? That was always the thing. Then he got married, then he met my mom, then he got married, then they had kids, and they're not gonna go to school here. We're gonna go. There was always that idea that we were gonna go back.
Yeah.
This was temporary housing in LA, and look what happens, I wonder how many other families that had that in mind, like we're just gonna go work for a while and then back home, but doesn't happen.
Yeah. I know my dad's family, they were definitely, that was the plan to be here. His eldest brother, from East Coast Philadelphia, Pittsburgh originally, Philadelphia, but the eldest brother came out, bought the house, and the whole plan was the whole family's coming out here.
Wow.
And it was a group effort. It was like we're leaving. My mother's story is different, in that my grandmother's, my great aunt, she moved out here with her husband, who was a Pullman porter, from New Orleans, and they were the first 2 to move out. Then my mother came to visit them. She fell in love with LA. But it wasn't, like you were saying, I don't think that was a permanent decision, in her mind at all. I think it was just like, I'm going to come and go to school. And I don't think she had an intention to. But this is what I pieced together in photographs. There's one of my favorite photos. And the story that I'm really thinking about, there's several of them now that like kind of sit on my desk. One is of my great grandmother, who lost her eyesight later in age. But there she is, standing in front of the car with her dark glasses on as if she drove out. I love this. And I want to write about it because I thought someone did that on purpose.
Yeah.
And, but yeah, and here are these palm trees behind her and she's smiling. It's just, but I love that. It's like claiming this moment. And what is this moment mean? You know?
Yeah.
Stories.
We had a couple comments come through. Lisa Castor wants to say how much she adores you both. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Oh, thank you.
And a question from Cassandra Lane. Lynell's approach to the city through the lens and words has been such an inspiration for me. Can you talk about how you catalog?
Wow. I wish I could say I was that formal, Cassandra. Thank you. That's really an interesting question. I guess I probably do, and I don't. It's very loose in terms of if we're thinking about cataloging for how when I go back to things and how I revisit. And you know, I have a weird memory in that everything is, my photos are grouped in by years, and I haven't done anything formal, but I kind of remember vaguely what is going on from month to month. And so when I go back to look at things, I can start to remember what was happening around that same time, so I can find things. But I have been thinking that I need to do something more formal. I think I'm still in that place where I just didn't think that this was going to stick, and it has. And so I probably do need to, in some way, shape, or form, be better about. I still think it should be by year and maybe, region. Even if I just break it down: San Francisco, Los Angeles, New Orleans, and then subgroups. That way, maybe doing something like that, because it is starting to get big.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we're almost out of time. I want to thank Lynell and Marisela for this fabulous conversation, and I would love to continue it again sometime. But we have not finished with them yet. So now here's the big news that I promised. We have a photography contest coming up. Let me try to make this bigger. There we go. Okay, so starting right now, we are now live. We have a photography contest. And I should have queued up some sound effects. It's very simple. We're looking for photographs that touch on the theme of creating joy in the midst of sorrow. And that's up to the entrants to decide how they want to interpret that. Submissions are due by October 6th. The process is very simple. If you go to bookswell.club, there's a link to a Google form, type in your information, upload your photo, and then you're good to go. And so our panel of illustrious judges, Lynell George and Marisela Norte, will judge the photos, and we will announce a winner of the cash prize of $250, and it is free to enter. The winner will be contacted by October 31st and announced at our final event of the year on November 15th. So go to bookswell.club. It explains way more better than I just said. More eloquently, I should say. And just so everyone knows, the next event in our series is in 2 weeks. It is Poets, well, that's annoying. Here we go. Poets Laureate across America, and it features Academy of American Poetry fellows talking about their projects and their work, hosted by City of West Hollywood Poet Laureate Brian Sonia Wallace, and featuring just an astonishing array of poets. So check that out. I'll be sending links about that. And with that, Lynell, Marisela, thank you so much. I just want to continue this for a couple hours, but sadly we can't. But I look forward to being in touch, and thank you for your words and for your inspiration tonight.
Thank you so much. Lynell, we'll talk soon.
Yes.
Thank you, Cody,
very.
and thank you, Michael, for yes, all your assistance with this. I really appreciate you guys. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much for for hosting us and for thinking of us and getting our brains to work around this. It's good to remember that, yeah, during this insane time, there are places for us to go in our heads and our hearts. So
And
thank
to
you.
connect what you said about trying to build bridges when you were reading from After Image, that really,
Yes.
yeah,
Mhm.
we have to keep trying.
Yes,
Yeah.
we do.
Yep.
All right. Thank you. Have a great night, and we'll talk soon.
All right.
Bye,
Thank you
everyone.
so much. Bye. Thanks for coming,
Bye.
everyone.